Can you imagine surviving the apocalypse? And then, just 3 days later, surviving it again? This isn't a Hollywood movie plot. This is the absolutely true, and frankly, unbelievable story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the only person officially recognized by the Japanese government as having survived both the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings. His journey is a testament to the sheer randomness of fate and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. So, let's go back to the summer of 1945. 29-year-old Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a naval engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. He was a bright, dedicated young man, and for the past 3 months, he'd been on a business trip in Hiroshima, working on a new oil tanker design. The project was finally done. By August 6th, he and his 2 colleagues were ready to go home to their families in Nagasaki. That morning, Yamaguchi realized he'd forgotten his hanko, his personal seal used for signing documents. It was a small, everyday item, but in Japan, it was essential, so he headed back to the shipyard to retrieve it. His colleagues, Akira Iwanaga and Kuniyoshi Sato, went ahead to the train station. It was a simple decision, a minor inconvenience, but it was the first twist of fate that would save his life. At 8:15 a.m., as he was walking through the industrial district, Yamaguchi heard the drone of a single aircraft high above. He looked up and saw a B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay. Then he saw 2 small parachutes fall from the plane. Suddenly, the world erupted in a flash of light he later described as the magnesium flare of a camera, but 1,000,000 times brighter. Without thinking, he dove into a ditch. The force of the blast was immense. It felt like a hurricane had lifted him up and slammed him back down. For a moment, he blacked out. When he came to, the sky was dark as night, filled with dust and smoke. The mushroom cloud, that terrifying symbol of a new age, was boiling up into the sky. He was less than 2 miles from the epicenter. His eardrums were ruptured, and he was temporarily blinded by the flash. His left side was severely burned, the skin raw and blistering, but he was alive. Stumbling through the chaos, he found his 2 colleagues, who had also miraculously survived. The city they had known just moments before was gone. It was a sea of fire, rubble, and unimaginable suffering. The bridges were destroyed. The streets were filled with the dead and the dying. Horrified, Yamaguchi and his colleagues spent a terrifying night in an air raid shelter, listening to the cries of the injured and the crackle of the inferno that consumed Hiroshima. All they could think about was getting home. The next day, August 7th, they learned that the main train line was somehow still running. They pushed their way through a landscape of total destruction to get to the station. They had to cross a river choked with burned bodies to get there. The scenes were nightmarish, something no person should ever have to witness, but they made it. They boarded a train packed with other dazed and wounded survivors, all desperate to escape the hell they'd just endured. The journey was surreal. For hours, Yamaguchi sat in silence, covered in bandages, his burns throbbing with pain. Watching the smoldering ruins of Hiroshima disappear behind him, he must have thought the worst was over. He was heading home, to the relative safety of Nagasaki. He was going back to his wife Hisako and their infant son, Katsutoshi. He had survived the unthinkable. He arrived in Nagasaki on August 8th and limped to a hospital. The doctor who treated him was an old school friend. He looked at Yamaguchi's horrific burns and couldn't believe his story. The wounds were so severe, he barely recognized his old friend. After getting his burns bandaged, Yamaguchi, exhausted and feverish, finally made it home. His family was shocked to see him in such a state, but overjoyed that he was alive. He was a ghost who had walked out of a nightmare. The very next morning, August 9th, despite his severe injuries and a high fever, Yamaguchi felt it was his duty to report to his Mitsubishi office in Nagasaki. He had to tell his superiors what had happened in Hiroshima. His bosses, understandably, were skeptical. How could a single bomb destroy an entire city? It sounded impossible. At exactly 11:02 a.m., Yamaguchi was in the middle of describing the massive explosion, the white flash, the deafening roar. He told his boss, "I think that's what they dropped on Hiroshima, ... And as he was describing the shape of the mushroom cloud, the room was suddenly flooded with that same familiar, blinding white light. For the second time in just 3 days, Tsutomu Yamaguchi found himself at the heart of a nuclear detonation. This time, the bomb, Fat Man, exploded over the Urakami Valley, almost directly above his office. Once again, the shockwave ripped through the building, shattering the windows and throwing him to the floor. He thought to himself, "I thought the mushroom cloud had followed me from Hiroshima. The sheer improbability is staggering." The second bomb was even more powerful than the first, but thanks to Nagasaki's hilly terrain, the destruction was more contained than in Hiroshima. Yamaguchi's office was just under 2 miles from this new ground zero. Miraculously, he survived again. His bandages from the Hiroshima bombing were blown off, and he was hit by a new wave of radiation, but he suffered no new immediate injuries. He immediately scrambled from the wreckage of his office and rushed home, desperate to know if his family had survived. He feared the worst. Their home was damaged, but standing, and inside, he found his wife and son, shaken and with minor injuries from flying debris, but alive. They had been out looking for burn ointment for him when the bomb fell, and his wife's errand had saved them. Another twist of fate in a story full of them. For the next week, Yamaguchi lay in a high fever, his body racked by the effects of double radiation exposure. His hair fell out. His burns wouldn't heal. He was constantly sick. His family didn't know if he would live or die. The world around him was a wasteland. 2 entire cities had been wiped from the face of the earth, and he had been in both of them. But against all odds, Tsutomu Yamaguchi slowly, painstakingly, recovered. His story was so extraordinary that for many years, he rarely spoke of it. It was too painful, too unbelievable. He tried to live a normal life. He worked as a translator for the Allied occupation forces, then as a schoolteacher, before eventually returning to Mitsubishi. He and his wife Hisako had 2 more daughters in the years after the war. He watched as other survivors, known as Hibakusha, struggled with radiation-related illnesses, like cancer and leukemia, and faced social discrimination. For decades, he carried his burden in silence. His government only recognized him as a survivor of the Nagasaki bombing. In their records, his presence in Hiroshima was just a footnote on a business trip. But as he got older, and as he saw the world continue to build up its nuclear arsenals, he felt he could no longer stay silent. He had witnessed humanity's most destructive power, not once, but twice. He had a unique perspective, a story that had to be told. In his 80s, he began to publicly advocate for nuclear disarmament. He wrote a book. He participated in a documentary. He wanted the world to understand the reality of what he had seen. This wasn't about politics for him. It was about humanity. He said, "The reason that I hate the atomic bomb is because of what it does to the dignity of human beings." In 2009, the Japanese government finally and officially recognized his unique status. They amended his records to certify him as a Nier, Hibakusha, a double bomb survivor. He was the only person to ever hold that official title. The following year, at the age of 93, Tsutomu Yamaguchi passed away from stomach cancer. He lived a long life, a life he should never have had. He saw his children grow up. He saw his grandchildren. He survived the apocalypse twice over and lived to tell the tale. His story is a powerful reminder of the horrors of war, but also of the incredible strength of the will to live. An ordinary man who became an accidental witness to 2 of history's most defining and terrifying moments. His journey forces us to ask ourselves, what would we do if we were in his shoes? His story isn't just history, it's a lesson and a warning that we must never forget. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey. If this story moved you or left you speechless, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We bring you unbelievable true stories like this every single week. And hey, if you're passionate about history and want to help us share more forgotten stories, We're a small channel looking for volunteers. Check out the description below for details on how you can join our team. Let us know in the comments if you'd ever heard of Tsutomu Yamaguchi before today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.